I'm Danielle, your host of the Abridged to Motherhood podcast, the place where moms like you learn to thrive, not just survive through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. I'm a birth and postpartum doula and a mom of two who's been where you are. My first pregnancy was filled with so much excitement, but it was also marked by stress, anxiety, and fear of the unknown. I thought I had everything mapped out, but when postpartum hit, I realized how unprepared I was for the physical, emotional, and mental toll of motherhood. It was overwhelming, lonely, and nothing like I imagined. When I found out I was pregnant again, I knew I needed to approach things differently. I made it my mission to not only prepare for postpartum, but to prioritize myself in the process. That shift changed everything. Now I'm here to help you do the same. Whether you're navigating your first pregnancy, feeling buried under endless advice, or struggling to figure out what you actually need for postpartum, this podcast is your safe space. You'll find practical tips, honest conversations, and expert insights to help you feel informed, supported, and empowered through every stage of motherhood. If you're ready to feel confident, prepared, and truly supported in your motherhood journey, stick around. This is for you. Hey friends, welcome back to the Abridged to Motherhood podcast. I am so excited to record this guest episode with Nellie Harden. We're going to talk all things identity and comparison traps in motherhood. Nellie is a wife, a mother of 4 daughters, a former worth chaser, trauma survivor, and an author and speaker in the space of family life and leadership. She focuses on helping women build a foundation of worth, esteem, and confidence to live the life they were created for. Her career has spanned from humpbacks to humans and includes decades studying personal, family, faith, and leadership development. When Nellie is not writing and speaking, she loves being outside with her crazy, happy Harden crew and adventuring through all life has to offer. Thanks so much for coming on, Nellie. I'm so excited for our conversation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Danielle.
You know, in your bio, that former worth chaser,
Mm,
I relate to that so much. Actually, when I had my daughter, I struggled with postpartum depression and
mm,
anxiety. And I literally had post-it notes around my house that said, "Your worth is not found in doing."
so good. Yeah. Yeah,
hmm
absolutely.
So let's dive right in. Why do you feel like so many moms feel like they lose their sense of identity when they have a baby?
Well, I think that is a multi-layered question right there. And I think, part of it has to do with just the physical changes we're going into. I mean, my background, like you said, is in biology and psychology. So I love to know like what's actually functionally happening, but how does that manifest itself in our decisions and what we're doing and how we're feeling and where we're going in our future though. And pregnancy is so many facets of that, right? We have so many physical changes happening, endocrine changes happening, so our hormones are changing and things like that. So we're going through such a flux anyway. And the world tells us, okay, now you have to have it all together. You need to be this super, gushy Huggies commercial mom, and you need to be all in, right? And so you're kind of grasping for something in a tornado, if you will, right? It gets really confusing, and you do have all of these newfound feelings. There's this new person that was there, but which you kind of knew before because you were attached if you carried your child. Some people don't carry their child if you're in, do a surrogacy or an adoption, right? And there's layers there. And so I think there's just so many people that are telling you what you need to be doing. And honestly, those people might be in front of you and they might not be. It might be your grandmother who passed away ages ago but is in your head telling you, what you should and should not be doing. I always, the shoulds, I say don't should on yourself, right? Especially after pregnancy, you should not should on yourself because it is such a fluctuating time. But yeah, some of those people might be in front of you, some of them not. Some of them might be long distance and have opinions about what you should be doing, but they aren't there in the trenches with you right there. I have 4 daughters and I had 4 babies within 4 years after going through 3 years of infertility. So to say that my emotions were one pendulum swing and then another is a huge understatement. And my husband and I have always lived somewhat away from family. Now we live 1,000 miles away from any family. And so to have any opinions coming in when they don't know the day to day what's happening, and I hear this from, a lot of women, is really hard because then you feel like, oh, I need to be doing what they say, but actually they don't actually know what's going on. They might know the 30,000-foot view, but they don't know the on the ground, boots on the ground view of what is happening. And sometimes you don't want to tell them those details because you want them to have this idea of what's happening and you don't want to give them any of the negatives, especially if someone's a little further away. We're more like, here's the highlight reel of everything until the dam breaks and you're like, oh, all of this is happening. And they think that they need to be on the next plane over and there's catastrophe, but we're usually somewhere in the middle.
I mean, I relate to that with the dam breaking with my first motherhood experience, and thankfully I had a sweet grandma who did hop on a plane and was able
Oh.
to come for a week and stay with us, and I owe her everything for that time because it was pivotal in my healing journey.
See, I find that so remarkable, and I never had that experience. And so for a while, and this is where it gets into the intricacies of the individual experience that you have as a mom. I remember I was in my middle two are twins, and so I was in this twins club in Indianapolis for a while, and I would sit around in these like mom nights out that we would go on, and I would hear that phrase, "Oh, it takes a village, it takes a village," and I'm like, "No, it doesn't. It takes me." And then I'm like, am I carrying the village or are you just carrying little? Like, I don't understand how this
Mhm.
happens. But, as I've matured, especially in motherhood and met so many other families and women and done the work that I do, I understand what they're saying and talking about because I have become a part of so many others' villages,
Hmm.
right? Especially when daughters get into adolescence and families are trying to raise them and equip them with their worth, esteem, and confidence. And so, I get it now, but when I was in the trenches, if you will, which I will debate in a second, the trenches there, but
Hmm.
when I was there, there's such a unique perspective that every mother has. And so you need to step into their story much more than you try to get them to step into yours.
Yes, we talk about that a lot on the podcast that sometimes we have to be the leader of creating that community and
Hmm.
modeling that for the people around us because not everyone has grown up seeing that modeled, so they don't know how to be that village for others. And so sometimes, unfortunately, we have to get the ball rolling, but
Yep.
hopefully, then we can create that village like you're talking about and become a part of other people's villages. I would really like to talk more about we feel like we lose our sense of identity when we
Hmm.
become a mother, but really, I think it's adding another layer to our
Yeah,
identity. Can you
absolutely.
talk more about that?
I feel like the media is really pushing this probably over the last 10 years. And when I get on and socials, and of course it depends on how you groom your algorithm, but just in the spaces that I run in podcasting and helping women and women nurture and raise younger women, I see this a lot of I am who I am and I'm not just a mom. And so I am going to put this part of me to the side, this motherhood part of me to the side so I can still be who I was slash am. But I think what you just said is so important because it's really important for everyone to know that the me that you are can, will, and honestly has to change. My youngest daughter is 15 right now, and I'm constantly having immaturity conversations because she is in the throes of all of that. She's going into her sophomore year now. She's also the youngest of four. And for any of you that have multiple kids, especially multiple of the same sex, that youngest usually tends to lag behind in maturity a little bit because they're holding on to that infancy more than the others did in their planted role of you are firstborn, you are a leader. But we have so many maturity talks about, okay, we are so grateful for the early childhood that you had, but now you're in a new stage of life and we need to practice gratitude in where we are so we don't have resentment toward responsibilities, resentment toward the people and things that you need to surround yourself with now. And there's the perks of she just got her permit and all of that. But then, so she likes some of the perks, but she doesn't like some of the responsibility that goes with that. And there's resentment that can pile up there. And so it is not going to be an automatic, I'm so grateful for this responsibility, but it's a practice of gratitude that needs to come with that, and a practice of gratitude for what was, and not just turning around and looking at back at what was. And I'm a Christian, and I just love the story of Lot's wife for anyone that's listening too. And to give you some background, like Lot and his wife were being saved from this village that was going to be, or this city that was going to be taken down. But the point is, the Lord told her, like, go and do not look back. And she was going, and then she was like, oh, I want to look back. She was longingly looking back at what she was coming from, and she turned into a pillar of salt, a
Yep.
preservative. She was stuck preserving what was there, and it stopped her from going into her future and what could have been. That just always, sticks with me. And I think about her and sitting there literally stuck in preserving her past forever, and she didn't get to take in the gift of what could be. And I don't want to do that, and I don't want that for anyone else either. So practice the gratitude of what was, but practice the gratitude of what is. And it's not always going to be easy. You might need to grab some paper. You might have a lot of tears, or a few tears, or some scream sessions going into it. Like, I am grateful for this. Thank you so much. But practicing gratitude will always be the counter to the frustrations that you're feeling in that taking on a new part of your identity.
Gratitude was a huge part of my healing journey as well. I still do it every single day. Either I write it down or I say it in my head, but 5 things I'm grateful for
Mm.
every single day. And there's research out there that you literally cannot be anxious while you're practicing gratitude.
Yep.
And I know, like you said, it's definitely hard because when I was in the thick of it, some days it was like, I'm thankful for running water.
Yeah.
Like that was what I could think of. I'm thankful I have a house.
Yeah.
But as I've practiced gratitude more and more throughout my life, it just gets so much easier. And I love being really specific with it too. Like, I love the way the sunshine felt on my face when I was driving in the car this morning. Because the more specific you can be, it just really helps your mind focus in on that gratitude. Let's dive into, I mean, I just gave some practical tips about how you can practice gratitude, but when a mom is struggling with that identity in motherhood and
Hmm.
she feels like, I want to reconnect with that piece of me that who I was maybe before I had a baby. Like, for example, I was a dancer my whole life. I had my baby and then I wasn't dancing anymore and
Hmm.
I really missed it. Um, so I had to be creative in finding ways to do that. And sometimes I just danced around the house. But
Yeah.
what are ways that we can reconnect with that piece maybe that we're missing while still practicing that gratitude?
Well, for you in just this example, right? You were a dancer. And so I would just encourage you, and it sounds like you have, but just for your listeners to walk through this, really dive in and say, what is it about dancing, right? Dancing was the expression, but what was the want that led you to the expression? So you need to dive below the surface of how that was expressed and ask, what did I want? What was I yearning for? What did I get out of it, right? What was the question that was answered by dancing? And so then you will be able to find new answers for that same question. And going back, and it's so funny you mentioned dancing, and I don't remember. I think it was one of my daughters, who are 15, 17, 17, and 20 now, by the way. So that's the stage of life I am in. But I used to be a gymnast, and so which I stopped years before I was a mother, but I love to move. I love that freedom. I love to feel music. And my husband, who he never did, he was never in band. I was in band too, as a total band geek. I did gymnastics, but I love to feel the music and just let my soul dance with it. And so we have a big master bedroom with wood floors, and sometimes I just close the doors, especially if I'm home, and I just like let loose in there. And it's just this beautiful, fun, cathartic like experience I could do that I never would want a single person in my audience for, but it's an audience between me and God, right? And so it's such a beautiful time. But for that, when I ask myself, what was the question that gymnastics or dance for you was the answer to, it is feeling music, it is feeling moved. And so, what are new ways that I can do that? How can I bring this new child or children that I have in my life into that love and passion for myself? Maybe that means dancing with them, right? Introducing them to that. What a beautiful thing that could be that you share with them. It's so powerful.
Let's shift gears now and let's talk about the comparison trap.
Okay, yeah.
Why is it so easy to fall in that comparison trap with other moms, especially on social media?
Oh, especially. And I think we need to recognize that. And the more that you dive into how algorithms work, the brain science of social media, and how it triggers that comparison, the more you can have kind of a warrior suit for it. You know what to expect. And I think of it like an arena. You walk into the arena and you are down there, you're in the trenches. There's this beautiful poem by Roosevelt that was said that Brene Brown uses often. And you are in the arena, right? The marred by sweat and blood and tears down there. And you are the only one that truly knows it. But in your audience, you want to save a seat for some of those things that are the roadblocks to your worth. And comparison is absolutely one of them. And when you can expect it, then you know what to do with it a lot more than, oh, it's coming, it's getting me again, it's coming out of the shadows. No, it will always be there. It's part of our how our brain works, it's part of how our psychology works. So when you save a seat and be like, yep, that right there, that's where comparison is going to sit, then you can prepare yourself a lot more for it. So always expect it. It will always be there. But I want to touch on the fact that it is a roadblock to your worth. And so then you want to make your worth strong enough that it can bust through, or smart enough that it can divert around those roadblocks. And there's other roadblocks besides comparison, which I can share with you in a few minutes. But there's 5 elements to worth. And when you are a new mom, or when you are coming into a new stage of your life, you need to recalibrate these 5 elements of worth to what this new stage and season is of your life. So it is to be seen and heard and loved and belong and have purpose. And so what used to make me feel seen back before I had a child was this. What I need now is this. This is why you hear so many times like, oh, my friends had babies and then, we don't hang out anymore. Well, they have different needs now. It doesn't mean that they don't love you or care about you, but they also have different needs now that they need to feel seen by other people who are maybe going through something similar to them. They need to feel heard by talking to somebody and not feeling ignored or silenced by someone that doesn't understand what they're going through. So don't be offended. They love you, they care about you, they still want to be with you, but they also are in a different season now. And for them to know their worth, they need to feel heard, seen, loved, belong, and have purpose in a different way than they did before. And that is okay, good, necessary. Your 90-year-old self will not be the same as your 18-year-old self. And it is a progression through life that we go through. Those are the 5 elements of worth, but the roadblocks for them are going to be comparison and people pleasing and identity shifting in order to fit in. And it's going to be distraction and perfectionism. And those 5 roadblocks are exponentiated after you have a child. And then not only for yourself, but then when you're out with others as well. So those are what you need to look out for, save a seat for, expect, and know that they're there, but not give them the show.
Wow. I wish I would have known about those 5 roadblocks because I think I struggled with 4 of the 5 after having my first child. Not really a distraction, but the other 4, I can totally see how that was affecting my mental health and how I was able to cope through that time.
Yeah.
So, mamas, if you are pregnant, that was just fire that she just spit. You need to listen to that and start doing the work and digging in of where are you at in those areas and how can you put that armor on, like you said. And for those Christian mamas, putting on the armor of God each day
Mm-hmm.
against those lies.
Yes, absolutely. And distraction comes also with I'm distracted with all the shoulds I should do a day. And there's so many, I love the word like accoutrements, right? There's so many things now. I remember I was blown away. A friend of mine had a home birth, I don't know, 20 years ago. And she had a home birth, everything went fine. And she sent me a picture of her tools that she needed for this home birth. And it was like a pair of clamps and scissors. And I was like, what do you mean? You need an entire hospital and an entire fleet of people and IVs and like all this stuff. And I am not condoning or pushing any which way. Everyone has their own thing that they need to do. But my point is that things are much more simple than we give them credit for. And back when I had babies, it was you go into Babies R Us and it was like, what is happening? Versus you just need burp cloths, maybe, you could use old t-shirts, bottle if that is the way that you're going, or breastfeeding, you don't need anything and you need some onesies. But now there's so many things, and that can be really distracting and feel like you're pulled in 1,000 different ways. Go to a baby shower now and it's like, oh, I need 4 different kinds of carriers for this child and 3 different kinds of beds and, this, that, and the other. It's actually much more simple than marketing agencies and marketing departments of companies will give it credit for. So try not to get pulled in all those directions to distract yourself from the simplicity of you have a new, beautiful human that you are their core connection to this world. And that's a beautiful thing. And just rest in the simplicity and try not to be distracted.
I actually took a baby registry certification program through, it's called Be Her Village. And what they offer is on Be Her Village, you can add doulas and lactation consultants and meal delivery services. So the support that you need.
Yes, that is great.
Versus the stuff. So I'm always pushing support over stuff. And that's something that I do in my one-on-one coaching sessions is I'll audit your baby registry or help you create it because there's so much noise out there. And yes, are there great things out there that can help throughout your process? Absolutely. I'm thinking of the Silverette nipple covers. I didn't know about those. And for someone with tongue and lip tied babies, that probably would have saved my nipples way more than just nipple cream would have.
Yeah.
But if you are not having all those issues, literally you can just put breast milk on your nipples or coconut oil. We don't need to be buying tons and tons of things to support ourselves throughout that motherhood journey. Like you said, it's really focusing on that connection, and that is such a distraction. And the marketing, they're very good at it. They are very, very good at it. They make you think you need these things.
They know the brain science, they know the brain science out there. They know how to get, especially moms, they're like, target this, target their shoulds, target their needs that they have right now, that if you don't do this, are you a good enough mother? I mean, that's really what the target is right there. And then you as the mom is like, oh, I have to have this because if I'm not, then who am I? What kind of mother am I, right? You're the kind of mom that's taking care of your child. And yes, to your point, there's a lot of great things out there, but just focus on simplicity.
When we get stuck in that comparison trap and that hearing those messages like, oh, you're not enough. You need this in order to make things better. How do we shift out of that?
I want to give a really elementary, shake your head, simple answer to this. And it is to write it down. Because when we have it all storming in our head, we literally shut down our frontal cortex, which is right under our forehead. And that is our area of executive function and decision making and reason and logical thought. And when we get so jumbled up here, it shuts down, and only our amygdala, which is our emotional center and response center, that's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. But that's four answers out of our entire emotional response. We're like, nope, we have to pick one of these because that is the most simple thing to do. And we are too stressed and high anxiety right now. So we are going to do one of these. And really, none of them, when you dive into the science of it, are good for a motherhood experience. And so you want to be able to have this beautiful squishy place under our forehead called our frontal lobe. You want to have that online, and you have to be calm in order to have that online. And in order to be calm, you have to get it all out of your head. So write it down. Journaling is going to be one of the most profound tools that you can use in your motherhood journey. And let me tell you, a journal does not have to be pretty. I was working with a young woman not too long ago, and she was saying, well, this is my journal that has kind of all of my feelings in it, my frustrations, and here's my prayer journal. And I was like, they need to be one and the same. You can be ragey, crazy, all the things. First of all, he knows. And second of all, you're literally trying to split your identity and fool yourself right here. Oh, this is my pretty space where pretty me stays, and this is my hard space where the real and darker, what have you, me can live. And no, it's all one and the same. But when you get something down on paper, you can look at that and say, is that actually true? Am I the worst mother ever in this world? Do I not like my family right now? Right? Is this actually true? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be no. Once your brain calms down, you can use logic, understanding, rational thinking, executive function. You're going to look at that and say no. And that is the greatest time to then say, what are 5 things that I'm actually in gratitude about right now? And be detailed, like you said earlier.
That reminded me of a book I recently finished, Get Out of Your Head, Stopping
Mm,
the Spiral of Toxic Thoughts by
yeah.
Jenny Allen. So good, because that's exactly what she talks about is writing it down, the phrase you're believing, then
Hmm.
asking yourself, is it true? And then in her system, then we're finding a scripture to replace
Yep.
that with. And then after we find that scripture, we're saying, I choose to believe what it says. But that was huge in helping me. And then I've been using it with my daughter too when she
Yeah.
is having some anxious thoughts too. So that's a really practical strategy. And then for any mama that wants to dive more into the journaling, I have a guest episode with Abby Dozen that we talk all about journaling too. So we're just wrapping you today, mamas. We're giving you all the supports, hopefully, to help you really get out of that identity and that comparison trap.
Absolutely. And we talked about worth, but the esteem piece, which is a whole different system of tools right there. But part of that is so esteem means to value and appreciate yourself. It doesn't mean you walk into the room and you think you're queen of the room. That's not what esteem or confidence is, right? Confidence is true belief in yourself that you can do this and whatever that this is. But esteem is value and appreciation of self, but you have to work it. You have to work on it. It is a practice of learning how to trust yourself, going from thoughts to feelings, to decisions, to actions, and then processing the results, which goes right back into your thought cycle. But along the way, you need to have outer accountability and inner accountability and identity checkpoints in there. And that's a practice that I teach, but it's really important to pick who is my outside accountability going to be. Mine is Christ. But when you do that, that is where that scripture comes in. Like, no, I'm thinking this. We can think all sorts of things. What you think is not who you are. Let
Mm-hmm.
me repeat that for everyone listening. What you think is not who you are. What you decide to percolate on, to rest on, to continue that thought cycle into a feeling cycle, that starts to become an identity marker right there. But even before it gets to decisions, you can ask yourself, is this really who I want to be? And the answer might be no. And then you just go and you get rid of it and you go back to your thought. And so especially we always have those random thoughts that come in or what have you, and then you're like, oh my goodness, I'm the most terrible person in the world. No, you're not. We all have random thoughts, and they just get dropped in there coming from experiences, our environment, what we're taking in through music, movies, etc., the people around us, our past, all these things. But what you are thinking is not who you are. It's what you decide to stay in that starts to develop who you are.
I needed to hear that today myself. All of this has just been so, so good. I would just like you to wrap up by speaking directly to the mom that's listening right now to encourage her. What would you say to her?
I would just say that you are already worthy, that it is not something you need to build. It is not something you need to find. It is not something you need to earn. You are already worthy where you are right now. Your next step is being able to recognize that, being able to see how you are seen and heard and loved and belong and have purpose. Because I promise you, you already are. But how do you recognize that? And then building trust in yourself. That is where you are going to be. But in the moment when you are, if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know if that frontal lobe thing is online right now, it's okay. And you just want to be calm, whatever that means to you. Deep breathing is huge. I do the square breathing, 3 breaths in, 3 breaths out, 3 breaths in, 3 breaths out, or, hold it for a little while, but get your frontal lobe back online, calm down, practice gratitude, even when it's hard. Honestly, especially when it's hard. Practice gratitude. It will get you through, but you're already worthy. And just learn to trust yourself. Expect all of those roadblocks. They will come. There's no doubt. If you let them surprise you, that's when they can take you down. But if you reserve a seat for them and say, yep, you over there, comparison, you sit right here where I can keep my eye on you. Expect it and know where they are at all times.
Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom with me and everyone listening. That was so incredibly helpful. So, if my listeners want to connect with you more, can you tell them where to find you?
Absolutely. So all my things are found on nellieharden.com. I would love to reach into your life, heart, and inbox every week if you get signed up with our community on there. And our social communities you can also find in our community section on there. And especially if you have daughters, that is my specialty right there. Then I have a bunch of resources that I would love to connect you with through my website as well.
And I know that you have 2 books as well. So, can you tell them about your books too?
I co-authored a book called No Problem Parenting, and it has just a beautiful mess of different chapters that relate to all different parts of life and being a parent and being a mother. And I talk about much more in depth than we were able to go here. I talk about those elements of worth in that book. And then I also have 40 scriptures and conversations to have when raising daughters, which is an online e-journal, and it has the scripture, it has discussion, and it has journal promptings that you can go through together, either as mother and daughter or as a family as a whole. And it's just a really beautiful journey that you can go through together.
Thank you so much again for your time, and we can't wait for you all to hear this episode and give us some feedback. Thanks so much for tuning in to the A Bridge to Motherhood podcast. I'm so glad you were here today. If you loved this episode, I'd be so grateful if you could leave a review for the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Share it with a friend or snap a screenshot and tag me on social media. If you decide to leave me a review, go to abridgetomotherhood.com/review. That link is also in the show notes so that I can send you a little gift in the mail. Your support helps other moms to find the podcast, and it truly means the world to me. Remember, your motherhood journey deserves your care and attention. Until next time, keep showing up for yourself, mama, and don't worry, I'm here to help every step of the way. See you soon.